Hey everyone, my name is Mike Henry, and this is my Procreate 4.1 demo for the piece I call Marked. This started as an exploration around the Symmetry tool that's now in Procreate. So let's take a look at how to use that. First, what you do is you go into the Canvas section in the little wrench, and you turn on Drawing Guide, which that just turns on that guide right there. Then you say Edit Drawing Guide, and when you go in, you'll see you have 4 options at the top. We want to go with Symmetry for this one. You can change the color of that line, you can move that line, I'm not going to do that right now, you can change the thickness of that line, but the most important thing that you want to make sure that you have turned on is the Drawing Assist, or assisted drawing that's in the bottom right. You just saw me toggle it on and off. So now you'll see it says assisted on your layer, and that means that whenever you're on that layer, you're actually going to be using the guide. So let me just grab the fat pencil here and do some doodles. You see here that it mirrors now everything on the right side that's on the left side. If you draw on the right side, it mirrors it to the left side. Just basically whichever side you draw on, it will mirror it to the other side. There are lots of options that you can do different types of symmetry, and you can go ahead and play around with that, but I just wanted to show you some of the ways that I might use symmetry. So one of the easiest obvious ones is to just do like a face that's looking directly at you. That seems to make a lot of sense. The one thing though that you want to be really careful of when you are doing symmetry is that it's symmetrical, and not a lot of things actually are symmetrical. Certainly nothing is perfectly symmetrical, especially when it comes to a face. So here's an example of drawing some guy, and then you want him to be looking to the side, and then you go and you draw it and you're like, ah shit, that's right, I forgot that the assisted drawing is on. So now I have this wall-eyed character. The eyebrows are in the exact same position, the mouth is symmetrical, everything's symmetrical here. So what you want to do is you actually tap then on the icon for your layer and you click on Drawing Assist right there, and it toggles it off. So now when you go back in and you erase away the eye, it won't erase the eye on the other side, and then you can go ahead and just draw the eye back in exactly the way you want it to be. And so maybe we'll then go in and lower the eyebrow, which this you can actually do without turning off the Drawing Assist. When you do moves and transforms and other various things, the Drawing Assist does not kick in. And then maybe you want to toggle it back on because you want to have the highlight on the eye sit like in the exact same spot on both eyes, something like that. And then turn it back off again because, well, now it's time to put the pupils into the eye, and you can't have those mirrored. And then I absentmindedly put another shine in the eye. Whoops. So now while Drawing Assist is off, you can go in and throw in a few more asymmetrical things. Maybe this guy's got an earring. Now let's turn Drawing Assist back on. Maybe he's got his septum pierced. What are some other things that this guy might have that's symmetrical? Maybe he's got a mohawk. Turn it back off again, and maybe we put those glints in like I had before. Put a little tattoo on the side of his head. So really this is what you're managing the entire time when you are using the Drawing Assisted Symmetry, is you're toggling it on and off. You can also turn off the guide in the menu, but that doesn't turn off the Drawing Assist. You have to then manually turn that off. So if you ever want to turn off the guide but leave the assist on, you can do that. So now that we've got the gist of how we do the Symmetry tool, you can see essentially how this whole thing is created. It's just like what I just did. The nice thing, of course, about real-time symmetry is you can see how messed up or how on point your face is. In Photoshop, for instance, I always use like a smart object trick where you just duplicate what you're drawing in a smart object and flip it horizontally and save it, yada yada yada. If you know Photoshop, then you probably understood what I just said. If not, maybe someday I'll cover Photoshop, we'll see. For now, since it's real-time symmetry, it's a lot easier. We just get to sort of see how everything is going in real time. So at this point, I don't know the plan of the drawing. I just know that I want to take something to a more finished state while using the Symmetry tool. You probably saw on Instagram, I posted a bunch of really loose sketches done in Symmetry when it first came out. I just wanted to try it out real quick, and this was me wanting to go with something a little bit cleaner. Now, one of the big things you need to do with Symmetry, unless you're really laying into the Symmetry for artistic purposes is you want to disrupt the symmetry at some point. Right now she's perfectly symmetrical. Her ears, her eyes, her nose, her lips, her eyebrows, her jaw, her chin, her neck, all of that is going to be perfectly symmetrical. So in order to try and bring some sort of organic aspect to this, I want to figure out ways to disrupt the symmetry. Now there are really obvious ways to do it that sort of look like I'm being a little bit too deliberate, although could also be cool, like a scar on the eye or do something really dramatic like that. I just decided to go for an asymmetrical haircut because that's common. We see that very often in walking around the streets, so it made sense. But then I decided I wanted to take it a little bit further and do way more symmetry. Since I already got as far as I did along with the drawing through symmetry, I thought it'd be cool to disrupt it even further, and that's where the whole idea for doing all the tattoos on her came from. All of this up until this point, by the way, is done with the fat pencil, which of course is linked below. The rough sketch, the tighter lines, the heavy hair lines, all of that is done with the fat pencil. So at this point now I've gone back to the layer with the drawing assist assigned to it and finished off the body, or at least what we can see of the body. And now I want to take a brief minute because we're going to start getting into the tattoos. I want to talk about the bonobo chalk and the which is that right there. This is what I use for the shading on the tattoos to try and simulate the pepper shading from a tattoo. It works really well in a nice stylized sense. While it's not exactly perfect, for the purposes of the illustration it works well. And then the sort of shaded graphite I will also use towards the end of the piece in order to add a little bit more distress to the image, so you can see what that looks like there. I don't like using a lot of it because you start seeing the pattern really quickly, like that right there, but I like using it in spurts here or there. So here we start with the first tattoo. How I decided to come up with the tattoos was I looked up a bunch of reference for the type of person that I was looking for. So I was looking up like gothic tattoos and particular people that I know have tattoos like this, just for a little bit of inspiration. None of these tattoos are lifted from anywhere. They're just trying to be in the same style as. So I highly recommend, even if you're going to be doing a fictional character, don't rip off people's tattoos, because that's a no-no. So the snake on the side of her head, that one was easy. I just made that up as I went because you don't have to see a lot of it. The trust tattoo under her eye is just sort of in that font that you've seen tattoos like that be in, and I didn't see anybody that had trust under their eye. I just thought that that would work out pretty well. And it's at this point on the snake that I decide to use the bonobo chalk in order to really give that peppery look to the way it's shaded. And also, I didn't know yet if I was going to shade her, like her actual topology, I guess you could say, but I knew that I wanted the tattoos to at least feel different than her. I mean, she's got the shading under her neck that's just done with the fat pencil, but the rest of the shading on the tattoos is all done with the bonobo chalk. So this design here, I said that I didn't lift any tattoos from anyone. Technically, I guess I lifted this from an old tattoo design that I had done. I've actually sat down to color this tattoo like 5 times and always decided not to for whatever reason. So this was a good opportunity to trot this drawing back out, do a new line drawing of it, because the original was like an old Instagram photo when everything that I posted was still super filtered and things like that, and so I needed to just recreate it in order to get it sharp. So this, I basically just use that original line art as my rough and trace over it, and then when this is done being traced, I have to start figuring out how it's going to be shaded, since the original drawing is not shaded. The way that I got the control using the bonobo chalk, because in order, it's sort of like using a big fuzzy airbrush in order to get the softness you're looking for in an airbrush and the big gradients. You have to have the brush kind of bigger than the space usually that you're shading, and the exact same is true with the bonobo chalk. So I used a lot of selections in order to trap the area that I wanted to shade in, and then use the bonobo chalk there, and then did any kind of extra alteration I needed to it. That said, though, I mean, it's a very, once you get used to working with it, which shouldn't take very long, it's a very quick process. This shading versus lots of others. The nuances is there in a different way, but it's gone in other ways, and it makes it just really kind of easy to work with and really fast to work with too. This was me bringing in the original drawing again because I couldn't remember what the bottom part of the tattoo was, and I just wanted to make sure that I was representing it accurately. So I even recreate the key handle. What part of the key is that? I don't know. Anyways, the key, the decorative element of the key, I rebuild it kind of so that it's at least in a little better perspective than in the original. I decided to omit the text from the original tattoo design because I didn't want that much text, and I also thought that I never really liked that part of the original design anyways, especially the little dorky horseshoe at the end of it. I just thought it didn't fit well with the design, so this was my opportunity to retcon it a little bit. I also removed the heart around the eye and just go for like a big old three-dimensional eye on the hat. I thought that would be ultimately cooler. The funny thing about this piece was it was going to be something really quick. I was in between two larger pieces. I can't remember what the first one was. I guess it was whatever came before Solid Snake. And I was between that one and the Solid Snake one. And I started working on this just for fun really quick. And then this one ended up being the bigger piece than the Solid Snake one. So Solid Snake ended up coming out before this one. I used to tell people when I would have a chat about the Pink Hair Girl book, I used to always tell them that like whenever I had one of those characters more covered in tattoos, it was like doing two separate illustrations, and that's essentially what happened here. Putting in all of these pieces, all of these sub pieces, these tattoo pieces across her, ended up being quite a bit of work. Here's where we start the Bonobo chalk coloring. So I had gotten a little taste of it doing the snake. I've also used it in a couple of other pieces, although my memory today is apparently complete turds because I cannot remember either the previous pieces or what I used it on, but whatever. I've used it a little bit, but this particular tattoo is where I really got to sit and think about like, okay, what are the rules here? How much of this is going to follow sort of like tattoo rules? How much of it am I just going to wing it? No pun intended. How much am I just going to wing it and see where it goes? And so that was me solving a lot of problems here. Now, in order to speed up all of this illustration, I pull a lot of tattoos from other places, meaning other illustrations that I've done or other tattoo designs that I've done. This is one from a couple of years ago. Has not been tattooed on anybody, but it was just one that I did for fun, and then thought, hey, let's use that here. So because a lot of these are also older and I only have like a bad photo of them because they were both done on paper, I had to redraw this one as well. The interesting thing too here is like I would completely redo certain design elements, but I also have this obsession with like when I have characters that have tattoos, I try to make them as realistic as possible. They might even have deliberate mistakes, or the design might be deliberately bad because maybe that tattoo didn't come from as good of an artist as a previous tattoo. So I decided in the spirit of that, I wouldn't necessarily alter any designs too much while I was going through here. So I like trying to tell a story. I mean, I have a lot of tattoos, so it's something that is near and dear to me, but I like sort of telling the story of like, Oh yeah, this tattoo was like an earlier one, and she didn't have a lot of money, and she went to the local guy. And then this one she got later in order to finish off her chest piece or something like that. So it's just fun for me. So here's another one that you guys have seen. I took this and did like really tight redraw of it and recolored it, and there's a whole Procreate video on this one, so you can go back and find that. But for this, I wanted to use more faces, and I wanted to get more stuff that felt like something she would have as a tattoo based on the other tattoos that I've been putting here. So I brought this one out and decided I needed to rework some of it because I wasn't going to have the dude. I was just going to have her and then work the thorny vines from her side of that design throughout the whole thing and eliminate the bones and stuff. And that's where this comes from. The funny thing here is I turned off her hair throughout all of this so that I could just keep it out of the way and focus on the designs. And then I realized, like, after I had completely redrawn this head, how much of her is blocked by the hair. But hey, that just makes it more thorough, I guess. And here I just throw in a little bit of drop shadow around the bird. I'm starting to try and think about like how the filler is going to work and which tattoos are going to take precedence over other tattoos, which tattoos did she get first, as I was mentioning earlier, and sort of trying to find a way to make this look not like one giant completed thing, because that's what I get to do right now as the artist. I get to make this one big completed thing, but trying to make that story more accurate. It's a bunch of little tattoos that she's gotten over time, so she didn't necessarily have a plan when getting them, and now, you know, this one overlaps this one, and this one is a slightly different style than that one, and so that's sort of what's going into that. The next section is just going to be me finishing off her design, getting in all of her shading, and completing the thorny vines all the way across. And now we jump to this other design. So here, this is another old design of mine. So I started on it, and then I realized, hey, if I put it here, you're not going to see it because of all of her hair. So I just flip it over. Now, it only kind of annoys me because that means there's like two skulls on the left side looking to the right side. And I'm obsessed with all-seeing eye imagery and stuff. So I've got like two eyes now, but I really don't care because, again, I think that it does fit into that idea that this wasn't all very well planned. She just got the tattoos that she liked as she got them. Here, if you look really closely, that on the left is... Actually, I'm not going to say who it is. I'm going to see if you can figure it out. There's not a whole lot you can see there, but I'm going to let you see if you can figure that out. So now just going through and adding a bunch of extra shading, adding a bunch of extra embellishments onto some of these other tattoos to really fill it in, make it feel like she's gotten some gap fillers in there just to make it all sort of stick together. Lastly, we throw another quick tattoo on her right bicep. but you can't see like just about any of it because it's all off screen. But I just wanted to make sure that there was at least some attempt to make it look like it was the continuation of a tattoo instead, because you know, sometimes when you get to the edge of the page like that, you might artificially force something in there, so I just wanted that to feel natural. And then her left arm just has like some sort of a designy, smoky, striation-y type thing over there. And now we've got some extreme goth letters on her left neck. And as soon as those are done, we're going to get into the distressing part of this. And by that I mean making the image look distressed. Oh, of course, I forgot about the kitchen knife. I also put in a kitchen knife. Okay, so there we then lowered the opacity on the tattoos, duplicated them and blurred them, and now we're throwing in a bunch of texture-y stuff in there, which I will go over in detail. Here, I thought it might be fun to put like a shadow across her, but then this got away from the sort of Xeroxy, stark black and white look of the whole thing, and I got rid of it. So we've got that graphite shading in there, some little specks of like eraser or dust or whatever you want it to be. And that's it. She's also got slightly blue eyes, but it's super slightly. So let's go through this file real quick so you can see what I did there at the end. So this is what the file looked like when everything was said and done. It's a little messier than I would like it to be, but it's not that complicated of a file, so it's not that big a deal. So there I turned off a bunch of the distress layers on top, turned off the graphite layers, and now let's start going through what everything else looks like as far as the stack is concerned. Put the tattoos up to 100%. Now we'll turn them off. These are all the individual tattoos. I still have them all separate, but in order to do that blurring and lowering of the opacity, I needed them all into their own layer, so that's why they existed over there in their own layer. Turn off the hair. And there's the original rough. So that was the original rough on a symmetrical layer, and then this part on a symmetrical layer that then got erased. And then the hair, the tattoos, this is all on its layer with its opacity lowered, and then that's the duplicated version blurred in order to just try and give a certain look to the tattoos that I'm going for. Now here's the distressed graphite. It's not distress, I mean, it makes the image distressed, but the graphite's not distressed. It's more just about adding a little bit of dirtiness to it. And now here's the white layer that I have over the black, and that's just to add damage to it. This is truly like to get to a distressed look. I can't remember which brush this is, but it's one of the like industrial brushes set to white and then with the opacity just really lowered. This here is a paper texture that I've used in a lot of stuff. I've just had it forever, and that is desaturated, set to multiply, and then had its opacity lower just to add more grit overall to the page. And then lastly, I took a watercolor paper texture that I have, and I inverted it so that it was the darks were white and the blacks were well, the darks were white and the whites were dark, and then I set it to screen, and that's because I wanted it to be mostly little specks of white instead of more dark, if that makes sense. Or I guess the other way around. And that's the texture right there that you can see it creates on the page when all is said and done. You don't necessarily see that when it's on Instagram and stuff, but you can see it when it's at full res. So to wrap it up, that is the complete piece. It's simple, but not at the same way, so I hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks a lot for watching. If you did enjoy it, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting that little notification bell. And if you're looking for me on the internet, these are the places where you can find me.